The sun had not even come out when Okon was already awake. He sat quietly beside his wife's bed in the small village clinic. The room smelled of medicine and dust. His wife, Ekaet, lay on the bed, her body weak and her eyes closed. Her stomach was big with pregnancy, but she had not spoken for many days, not even a single word, not even a whisper. Okon held her hand gently, his fingers shaking. "Please, say something," he whispered. But she did not move. Tears rolled down his face and dropped on her hand. Every day he watched her become weaker. Every day his heart broke more. The doctor had told him many times that she needed proper treatment, but money was the problem. Big money. Money Okon did not have. He was just a poor man who worked on other people's farms. He could barely feed himself, not to talk of paying hospital bills. Still, he did not give up. Every day after work, he came straight to the clinic, sat beside her, and cried quietly so no one would hear him. As he sat there that morning, his mind travelled back to many years ago. He remembered his mother. She had also been lying on a sick bed, just like Eket. That day was still clear in his head like it happened yesterday. His mother had called him close with her weak hand. Her voice was shaking. "Okon, listen to me," she had said slowly. "Your father and I buried money in." Suddenly she coughed hard. Her body shook. Okon leaned closer, his heart beating fast. "Buried money where, Mama?" he asked quickly. But before she could finish her sentence, she gasped loudly and her body went still. "Mama!" Okon shouted. He shook her. "Mama, talk to me! Buried money where?" But it was too late. His mother was gone. The words died in her mouth. That moment had never left him. Sometimes he would sit alone and think about it. Where could that money be? Why did she not finish her words? Now, sitting beside his dying wife, that memory came back stronger than ever. He held his head in pain. "If only I knew where that money is," he muttered. Later that same morning, Okon made up his mind. He stood up from the wooden chair beside Ekaet's bed and wiped his tears. He had to try one more time. There was a wealthy man in the village, a man who owned many farmlands and had many workers. People feared him because he was proud and harsh. But Okon had no choice. He walked quickly under the hot sun until he reached the man's big compound. His legs were shaking as he stood at the gate. When he was finally allowed inside, he bowed his head and spoke with a low voice. "Sir, please, my wife is dying. She is in the clinic. I need money for her treatment. I promise I will work and pay you back." The rich man looked at him with cold eyes. He laughed shortly. "Money? You?" he said. "Do I look like a charity house?" Okon's heart sank, but he continued to beg. He went down on his knees. "Please, sir, I beg you." The rich man waved his hand in anger. "Get up. If you want money, go and work on my farm. I will pay you when you finish. But I will not give you money like that." Okon stayed silent for a moment. His wife did not have time. She needed help now, not later. Slowly he stood up and shook his head. "Thank you, sir," he said weakly. Then he turned and walked away, his heart heavy. The next day, before the birds even started singing, Okon was already on the rich man's farm. He had not eaten anything. His stomach was empty, but his mind was full of fear, full of pain, full of thoughts about his wife. He picked up a hoe and began to make ridges on the dry land. The sun rose slowly, and the heat became strong, but Okon did not stop. Sweat covered his body, and his hands began to hurt, but he kept going. Every time he felt like resting, he would see Ekayet's weak face in his mind. He would hear the doctor's voice. So he pushed himself harder. Hours passed. His legs felt weak. His breathing became heavy. Still he worked. Suddenly his hoe hit something hard under the ground. Kabang! The sound was different. Okon stopped. He frowned and looked down. Slowly he bent and cleared the sand with his hands. What he saw made his heart jump. It was a clay pot, covered and old. He looked around quickly. Nobody seemed to be watching. For a moment he thought of calling another worker nearby, but something inside him said no. His hands trembled as he carefully pulled the pot out of the ground. He dusted it and held his breath. Okon sat on the ground and stared at the clay pot. His heart was beating so fast. Slowly he removed the cover. The moment he looked inside, he gasped loudly. His eyes widened. The pot was filled with coins. Plenty coins. Old, shining coins. His hands shook so much that he almost dropped it. "God!" he whispered. He quickly looked around again. Nobody was coming. Nobody saw him. He closed the pot quickly and wrapped his shirt around it. Without wasting time, he stood up and quietly walked away from the farm using a small bush path. His legs moved fast, even though his body was tired. When he got to his small house, he locked the door tightly. He placed the pot on his wooden bed and stepped back. He could not believe it. He began to walk up and down the room, holding his head. "What do I do?" he asked himself. "Should I tell the rich man? Or should I use this money to save my wife?" His heart was troubled. He did not want trouble. He did not want anyone to accuse him. But he also could not let his wife die. Finally, he hid the pot carefully in a corner of his room, covering it well. Without wasting any more time, Okon rushed back to the clinic. His chest was rising and falling fast as he ran. When he reached, the doctor was standing outside with a serious face. Okon's heart dropped. "Doctor, what is happening?" he asked, breathing hard. The doctor looked at him and sighed. "Her condition is worse," he said slowly. "If nothing is done in the next 24 hours, we may lose her." Okon froze. His ears rang. For a moment he could not move. Then suddenly he turned and ran again. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. When he got home, he brought out the clay pot with shaking hands. He opened it and quickly counted some of the coins. Then he wrapped them and ran back to the clinic. When he handed the money to the doctor's eyes widened in shock. "Where did you get this kind of money so fast?" he asked. Okon only smiled faintly. But at that same moment, far away from the clinic, the rich man was already marching towards Okon's house with anger burning in his eyes. Some workers had told him about the spot where Okon was working. Now, with his guards behind him, he reached the house and began to bang loudly on the door. "Okon, open this door!" he shouted, but there was no answer. The house was empty, and the door remained locked. The doctor did not waste time after Okon brought the money. He quickly called the nurses, and they carried Ekayet into another room. Okon stood outside, his heart beating fast like a drum. He could hear small movements, soft voices, and the sound of metal tools. Time moved slowly. Every second felt like one whole hour. He walked up and down the corridor, holding his head, whispering prayers. God, please, don't take her away from me, he kept saying. After many hours, the door finally opened. Okon rushed forward. Before anyone could speak, he ran inside. What he saw made his legs weak with joy. His wife was lying on the bed, breathing calmly, and beside her was a small baby, wrapped in clean cloth. A beautiful baby. Their baby. Tears filled Okon's eyes immediately. He covered his mouth and began to cry. "Ikate," he called softly. His wife slowly opened her eyes for the first time in many days. She looked at him weakly and smiled. That small smile meant everything. Okon fell on his knees and thanked God again and again. He carried the baby gently, afraid to even breathe too hard. Joy filled the small room like light. 2 days later, Ekayet was strong enough to go home. Okon was very careful as they walked slowly back to their small house. He held his wife with one hand and carried a small bag with the other. Ekayet held their baby close to her chest, smiling quietly. When they reached home, Okon opened the door and helped her sit on the wooden bed. The house was still the same, small and simple, but now it felt different. It felt alive. It felt full of hope. Okon was still smiling when suddenly, bang, bang, bang! Someone knocked loudly on the door. The sound was strong and angry. Okon froze. His heart jumped. Eket looked at him with fear. "Who is that?" she whispered. Okon did not answer. Slowly, he walked to the small window and peeped outside. The moment he saw who was there, his body shook. It was the rich man, and behind him were his guards, standing with hard faces. Okon quickly stepped back. Sweat covered his face. Without thinking, he rushed to where he had hidden the clay pot. He picked it up and moved it to another corner of the room. He covered it quickly with old clothes and made sure it could not be seen. Then he wiped his face and forced himself to calm down. Okon walked slowly to the door and opened it. He tried to smile, but his lips were shaking. "Good afternoon, sir," he greeted. "What are you doing here?" The rich man did not smile. His face was tight with anger. He stepped forward a little and looked straight into Okon's eyes. "I heard something," he said slowly. "I was told that you found something on my farm and took it home." Okon's heart pounded loudly in his chest. "Go inside now and bring whatever it is out," the rich man added, his voice firm and dangerous. Okon swallowed hard. His hands felt cold. "Sir, I don't understand," he said quickly. "That is not true. I did not take anything." The rich man stared at him for a few seconds without blinking. The guards behind him shifted slightly. Okon forced himself to continue. "The only thing I saw there was some yams," he said nervously. "I uprooted them so I could cook food for my wife when she was in the hospital." The rich man did not speak. He just kept looking at him. The silence was heavy. Then suddenly he turned around. "Let's go," he said to his men. Without another word, they all walked away. Okon stood there, still shaking, until they disappeared from sight. When Okon went back inside, his legs felt weak. He closed the door gently and leaned on it for support. Eket was looking at him with wide eyes. "What is going on?" she asked. Okon took a deep breath and sat beside her. Then slowly he told her everything. He told her about the farm, the clay pot, the coins, and how he brought the money for her treatment. As he spoke, Ekayet's face changed. Fear filled her eyes. "That man is dangerous," she said softly. "People fear him. If he finds out, he will not forgive you." She held his hand tightly. "Please, let us return the remaining money. I don't want trouble." Okon looked at her quietly. He understood her fear. The whole village knew how powerful the rich man was. Slowly, Okon stood up. "Okay," he said. "Let me take it back." He went to the corner, removed the clothes, and brought out the clay pot. As he held it in his hands and walked toward the door, something suddenly hit his mind. He stopped moving. His eyes widened. A memory flashed in his head like lightning. He saw his mother again, lying on her sick bed, her weak voice struggling to speak. "Your father and I buried money in." Then silence, then death. Okon's heart skipped. His hands began to shake. "Buried money," he whispered. He looked down at the pot in his hands. Then he looked at Ekayet. "Wait," he said slowly. "Wait." His mind began to work fast. The rich man had only bought that farmland a few months ago from the king. Before that, nobody used the land. It was empty for many years. Okon's breathing became heavy. "If that land was empty," he said slowly, thinking aloud, then it is possible." He dropped the pot gently and held his head. Suddenly he shouted, "It is my money!" Ekayet jumped in shock. "It is my money!" Okon repeated louder. He rushed back to her and knelt down. "My mother said they buried money somewhere before she died," he explained quickly. "She did not finish her words. I did not know where. But now I understand." Ekayet covered her mouth in shock. Okon stood up again, his eyes full of tears. But this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of joy. "This money, it belongs to my parents," he said. "God has finally shown me where it is." He looked up and raised his hands. "Thank you, God," he said with a trembling voice. "Thank you for not forgetting me." Ekayet began to smile slowly, her fear disappearing. She looked at her husband with wonder. "So, this is our blessing," she said softly. Okon nodded. From that day, everything changed. Okon used the money wisely. He built a better house. He took care of his wife and child. He started his own farm and later became one of the most respected men in the village. The rich man never came back, and no one ever spoke about any missing money. It was as if the secret was buried forever. Okon never forgot where he came from. He helped the poor, fed the hungry, and never allowed pride to enter his heart. No matter how hard life is, never give up. What is meant for you will always find its way back to you, and God can change your story at any time.